Our Rosatom is doing everything to make the ruble nuclear. Why nuclear? Because until 1971, under the commitments made at Bretton Woods, the U.S. was obliged to convert dollars into gold at a fixed rate of $35 per troy ounce. Well, in 1971, the U.S. Nixon unilaterally took and abolished this gold standard, detaching the U.S. currency from the quotations of the precious metal. I will briefly give information about what happened after that on the world oil market. The U.S. abandonment of the gold standard in 1971 had a profound effect on oil-producing regions, especially OPEC members. At that time, the majority of petroleum product supply contracts were denominated in U.S. dollars. The sudden devaluation of dollars following the exit from the gold standard lowered the value of the market. Existing agreements and contracts. OPEC officials have tried to value oil exports in gold rather than dollars, but there has been no major change. One of the major steps taken to end the 1973 to 1974 oil crisis was the alliance between the United States and Saudi Arabia. In June 1974, the U.S. and Saudi Arabia signed a landmark agreement that laid the foundation for the petrodollar system. This agreement is not official historical doctrine, but is widely accepted as the primary modern petrodollar system. In addition to production and exports, dollars are also used to trade crude oil on world markets. Leading indices and oil-related futures products are denominated in U.S. dollars. The most significant are the following: VTI futures, Brent futures, OPEC basket indices, Canadian crude index, DMA Oman crude futures. Thanks to this agreement, the dollar has maintained its position in the world and has since been referred to as the petrodollar. Still, we cannot say that this was an illogical or imposed step on OPEC countries, because trade in dollars was mutually beneficial for both the U.S. and them, because there was no alternative to the dollar as the world currency at that time. And America was the world's first economy at the time. And now the situation, albeit little by little, albeit with great problems, will change. And because the U.S. is no longer the first world economy by GDP PPP, as it has destroyed its industrial capacity with its own hands by moving its production to other countries. And because the trade, this country's balance sheet has been negative for a long time, meaning they buy goods all over the world with their unsecured currency. And because after the imposition of sanctions against Russia, the freezing and theft of our assets, and the blocking of trade settlements in dollars, it became clear to all non-Western countries that it is impossible to continue to put all the eggs in one basket, so as not to find themselves at a broken trough at one unforgettable moment. In general, it became necessary to search for a substitute for the international trade dollar, but this process will obviously be long, because the international settlement system in the oil and gas complex has been built up over decades and has grown up with many financial infrastructure instruments, including exchanges, price agencies, the international settlement system, and so on. Therefore, switching to the RMB or a new international currency does not simply involve replacing the name of one currency with another in the treaties, but rather the creation of a new financial infrastructure. And it takes time and a lot of effort to build that infrastructure. But its creation is only a matter of time, as our Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov recently announced. But while the structure of this new financial system is maturing in the minds of the BRICS leaders, we need to take care of our currency, the ruble, by promoting it in international trade settlements, so as not to fall into another dependence, for example on the yuan. However, skeptics may point out that China has much more opportunities to promote the yuan in international trade than we do to promote the ruble, because our economic potential is not comparable to China's, which means that it will be very difficult for our ruble to compete with the yuan in terms of attractiveness to the countries of the world. The sequel follows. Still, we have excellent opportunities for our trading partners to convert settlements with us from dollars to rubles rather than yuan. This may also lead to a certain cumulative effect, when third countries, even those not trading directly with Russia, will be interested in paying for these exports in rubles. Russia's unquestionable leadership in the use of peaceful nuclear energy provides one such opportunity, namely the ability to build the world's best nuclear power plants with both thermal reactors and fast neutron reactors, allowing to realize closed fuel cycle, as well as floating nuclear thermal power plants. I recently saw news about the start of pouring concrete at the base of the foundation of Unit 4 of the most powerful, 4,800 megawatts, nuclear power plant on the African continent, El Daba in Egypt, which will reach its design capacity by 2030 and will generate 10% of all electricity consumed in the country. So, the implementation of each such project in any of the countries allows us to transfer settlements with them to rubles. That is, thanks to NPPs alone, we can increase global demand and consumption in our rubles, not dollars or yuan. For example, in some country we are building a nuclear power plant. At the same time, we are carrying out its construction, supplying our equipment, training personnel at our universities, supplying fuel assemblies, and in the future we will carry out technical equipment. clinical services, scheduled repairs, extend the life of reactors, and take spent nuclear fuel back to the country for reprocessing. All of these services are exclusive. They are, by definition, unmatched by any other country in the world, which means we can request payment for all of this in the currency that is most favorable to us. And if we want to promote the ruble in international settlements, we can request payment for the construction of nuclear power plants and all these services in rubles, thereby incentivizing any country to earn rubles. By the way, our foreign trade in rubles is increasing every year. They will be able to earn our currency by selling their goods to Russia and third countries for rubles, not dollars or yuan. And also due to the fact that tourists coming to them from Russia could pay there in rubles instead of other currencies. Again, an example. Aging of a nuclear power plant in Turkey. Turkey will need rubles, but they may not be enough. And then Turkey, which supplies its products to some country in, which does not trade with Russia but supplies its products to China, can ask this country to pay for Turkish goods in rubles. This means that country in will have to ask the Chinese to pay it in rubles. By the way, China has plenty of rubles, which it will then pay to Turkey and Turkey to Russia. Thereby, there may be a cumulative effect of strengthening of the action, which will lead to an increase in demand for rubles. Thus, each NPP built by Rosatom brings closer the moment when the Russian ruble turns into a nuclear ruble, i.e., it does not become an empty currency, but a currency attractive for international trade settlements, backed by our exclusive nuclear technologies. In addition to construction, we have other exclusive goods that countries seeking to pursue an independent policy and supporting the idea of multipolarity of the world will not be able to acquire in the West without threatening to lose their sovereignty, such as civilian aircraft, the entire range of weapons, etc. In general, this issue is extremely important to us. Our country is now building almost half of the nuclear power units in the world, outperforming all other countries, including even China. Russia is ahead of all countries in the world in terms of the number of NPPs being built. Such information is contained in the IAEA prize database. According to the prize, 58 nuclear power plant units are currently under construction in the world. Of these, 23 power units are being built by Russia. Rosatom's direct competitors are the three Chinese companies CNNC, CSBI, and CGN. They are building 22 power units today, but they are being built primarily inside China. In addition, 5 of them are being built by Chinese companies together with Rosatom itself. The US and Europe are seriously lagging behind the leaders. According to the IAEA, a total of 412 nuclear power plant units in different countries are in operation in the world today. Their total capacity is approximately 370 gigawatts. Another nuclear subsector where Russia leads is uranium enrichment and nuclear fuel production. Meanwhile, uranium prices have nearly doubled in the past year. Uranium jumped in price in 2023, driven by 2 long-term economic trends: energy security and the transition to green energy. Uranium prices jumped to $90 a pound in December, renewing a 15-year high from $50 at the beginning of the year. According to GM Group, investors, meanwhile, are expecting further growth. The coup d'etat in Niger, home to about 5% of the world's uranium reserves, has raised fears of supply disruptions. Meanwhile, Yellow Cake, which specializes in investing in physical uranium reserves, warns that China may abandon exports to meet its own growing demand. At the same time, dependence on Russia, the largest exporter of enriched uranium, has caused alarm in the US and elsewhere. Many believe that peak uranium prices are short-lived, as was the case with gas prices in 2022, which soared largely because of Western sanctions against Russia. However, even if prices fall, they will probably still remain at a higher level than before the sanctions. As it did with gas prices, Russia will find someone to sell uranium to, including China and other countries with nuclear programs, and Western countries will find ways to overpay middlemen for secret chains to buy uranium from Russia anyway.